Nora sat alone in Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport at 2 in the morning, watching the cleaning crew move quietly across the floor while her heart felt heavy. Only 12 hours earlier, she had been on holiday with her mother and sister. Now she was stranded because her mother, Clara, claimed she needed a lesson in independence. Nora hugged her suitcase tightly and whispered, "Why would she do this to me?" The empty terminal echoed around her, making her feel even smaller. Every thought in her mind circled back to the same ache. Her family had left her behind without warning. For years, Clara compared Nora to her younger sister, Beth. Beth was the golden child, top of her class, confident, and already climbing her career ladder. "Look at Beth," Clara often said. "That's what success looks like." Nora had recently lost her job in Dallas and was using the time to build her digital marketing business. But Clara didn't see it as ambition. "This isn't the time for childish experiments," she told her. Each comment dug deep, reminding Nora that no matter how hard she tried, she never measured up in her mother's eyes. The trip had begun with beautiful moments: Arizona's wide skies, long scenic drives, and the breathtaking Grand Canyon. But even there, Clara found a way to turn the moment into criticism. "See how the canyon was formed. Years of consistency," Clara said loudly. "Something you've never mastered." Nora swallowed her frustration. Later that afternoon, she offered to pay for lunch, hoping to ease the tension. But Clara laughed cruelly. "Save your little freelance money," she said. Nora smiled politely, but inside a quiet pain spread through her chest, the kind that comes from feeling unseen. On their final evening, Clara arranged a fancy dinner to celebrate Beth's new medical fellowship. Guests clapped as Clara raised her glass. Nora smiled genuinely for her sister. But when Nora shared that she had secured a new contract for her small business, Clara rolled her eyes. 6 months of work for that amount, she scoffed. "Beth earns that easily." The restaurant went silent. Nora felt her throat tighten as Clara continued. "You pretend to run a business. It's embarrassing." Nora slowly stood up. "I'm tired, Mum. Tired of trying to earn approval I'll never get." The next morning, Nora knocked on their hotel doors, confused when no one answered. At the reception desk, the clerk handed her an envelope with her name on it. Inside was a standby plane ticket and a note from Clara. "If you want independence, prove it." Nora's hands trembled as she checked her bank account. Only £1 remained. Clara had emptied the joint accounts completely. "She actually did it," Nora whispered. With just $47 in her purse and no way home, she realized the truth. She had not been taught a lesson. She had been abandoned. Nora tried calling Clara and Beth repeatedly, but every call went straight to voicemail. She stood outside the hotel entrance, staring at the bright Arizona sun while her chest tightened. She sent Beth a message. "Did you really leave me here?" Minutes later, Beth replied, "Mum says this is for your own good. You want independence. Here it is." Nora's hands shook. She opened her banking app again, hoping she had read it wrong. But the balance still showed one lonely pound. "She took everything," Nora whispered. "Every bit of my savings. All of it." Trying not to panic, Nora walked to a shaded bench and began calling friends back in Texas. Her closest friend, Rose, answered with a sleepy voice. After hearing what happened, Rose sighed. "Nora, I'd help if I could, but I've just paid rent. I barely have £50 left." Nora understood. One by one, she called different people, college friends, old colleagues, anyone who might help. Some sent kind words. None could send money immediately. By noon, she was in a small cafe buying the cheapest coffee on the menu, using the free Wi-Fi to search for options. Nora decided to head to the airport early, hoping she could talk to an agent about her standby ticket. She used $30 of her remaining cash for a ride. The driver, an older man named Henry, kept glancing at her in the mirror. "You look troubled," he said gently. Nora forced a small smile. "Family issues." Henry nodded slowly. "Sometimes family hurts us more than strangers." His words stung with truth. At the airport, the agent checked her ticket and sighed. This flight is fully booked. You can wait, but your chances aren't good. She waited anyway. What else could she do? Hours passed as travelers rushed around her, laughing, talking, living normal lives. When the flight finally boarded, Nora stood near the gate hoping someone would cancel. No one did. She watched the plane leave without her, feeling a hollow ache settle in her stomach. That night, she wandered through empty terminals trying to stay unnoticed by security. Her phone died at 2 a.m., and she didn't have her charger. Exhausted, she curled into a cold airport chair, hugging her backpack for warmth and praying morning would come quickly. Around 3 in the morning, a security guard approached her. He was a tall man with kind eyes, and his name tag read Mr. Lewis. "Miss, are you all right? You've been here a long time," he said softly. Nora couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears spilled as she whispered, "My mum left me here, she took my money. I don't know what to do." Mr. Lewis sat beside her and handed her a small card. "This is for stranded travelers. They can help." Then he unplugged his charger and offered it to her. "Start by charging your phone." While Nora's phone charged, Mr. Lewis stayed nearby, telling her stories about his own family struggles. "My father threw me out at 18 because I chose the army over his business," he said softly. "It felt like betrayal, but it made me stronger." His calm voice steadied her breathing. When her phone finally turned on, dozens of messages poured in, from Clara. The tone shifted with every text. "Stop the drama. You embarrass this family. If you apologize, we can talk." Nora deleted every message. For once, she refused to be guilt-tripped into silence. Nora called the hotline Mr. Lewis had given her. A woman named Patricia answered with a warm voice. After listening to Nora's story, she said, "What your mother did wasn't tough love. It was abandonment." Nora swallowed hard, feeling seen for the first time. Patricia continued, "There's a women's resource center in Phoenix. They can give you temporary shelter and help you plan your next steps." Nora hesitated. Do people like me go there?" Patricia replied gently, "Yes, love. People who deserve safety and support." Nora agreed, feeling relief mixed with fear. Nora used the last of her cash for a small ride to the resource center. The driver, a young woman named Kelsey, looked at her kindly. "Don't worry," she said. "I stayed there once too. They helped me start over." The center was a simple building, but inside it felt warm and safe. A woman named Mrs. Hall welcomed Nora with a soft smile. "Let's get you settled first," she said. She escorted Nora to a small room with 2 beds. "You're sharing with Hannah," she added. "She's lovely." For the first time in days, Nora felt a tiny spark of hope. That evening, Nora attended a support group meeting. 8 women sat in a circle, each with a different story: abandonment, betrayal, financial ruin. When it was Nora's turn, she spoke shyly about being left in Arizona with almost nothing. She felt embarrassed, but Mrs. Hall stopped her gently. "Pain isn't a competition," she said. "Your story matters." Hannah squeezed her hand. "Family betrayal hits the deepest," she whispered. Nora realized she wasn't alone. Others had survived far worse and were rebuilding slowly, piece by piece. The room felt like a place where broken things could mend. The next morning, Mrs. Hall introduced Nora to a cafe owner named Mr. Brooks, who sometimes hired women from the center for temporary work. He was a tall man with tattoos and a warm voice. "Can you start now?" he asked. Nora nodded quickly. For the next few days, she worked long shifts, waiting tables, washing dishes, preparing vegetables. Mr. Brooks paid her daily in cash, and the other waitresses shared their tips after hearing her story. "We've all been through something, love," said one of them named Claire. Nora realized kindness could appear in the most unexpected places. On her second day at the cafe, Nora overheard a group of business people discussing their need for social media management. Her heart pounded. She walked over quietly and said, "I'm sorry. I couldn't help overhearing. I run a digital marketing service. They looked doubtful until she showed them her previous projects on her phone. Their expressions changed quickly. One of them said, "Email us. We might have something for you." Nora felt a spark inside her, the part that believed she could still build something meaningful. It was the first real opportunity she'd had in days. That evening, Nora finally received a message from Beth. "Nora, sorry. Mom went too far. I didn't know she took your money. I tried to send you some cash, but Mom watches my accounts. She says you need to learn a lesson. This is insane." Nora felt tears sting her eyes. Beth added, "Aunt Diane knows what happened. She's furious. She says you can stay with her when you return to Texas." Nora typed back, "I'm safe. I'll be okay. Take care of yourself." It felt strange, comforting Beth instead of the other way around. After 3 full days of work, Nora finally saved enough money for a bus ticket. Mrs. Hall drove her to the station. "You're stronger than you realize," she said, hugging Nora. Nora boarded the Greyhound bus with a small bag, a hopeful heart, and a new understanding of resilience. The trip to Texas would take 22 hours. During the journey, she sat beside an elderly woman named Margaret, who had soft eyes and a gentle laugh. Before long, Nora found herself sharing everything that had happened. Margaret listened without judgment, nodding slowly. When Nora finished explaining, Margaret squeezed her hand. "I left my family when I was 30. They were cruel, though we didn't call it abuse back then, we just called it being unkind. Leaving was the best choice I ever made." Nora whispered, "Do you regret it?" Margaret shook her head. "Not once. Built a new family. People who chose me." She showed Nora photos of her grandchildren. Nora felt a small warmth inside her chest, a reminder that blood wasn't the only way to belong. Sometimes family was chosen, not inherited. During a stop in New Mexico, Nora helped a young mother handle 2 restless toddlers while she used the restroom. When the woman returned, she said breathlessly, "Thank you. Their dad bailed on the trip last minute. I'm traveling alone to stay with my sister." Nora handed her $20 from her small earnings. "Someone helped me," she said gently. "When you can, pass it on." The woman's grateful smile stayed with her long after the bus pulled away. As the miles rolled by, Nora realized she was no longer running from something. She was moving toward herself. As the bus crossed into Texas, Nora's phone buzzed with new messages. More from Clara. "Your behavior is unacceptable. Beth is upset because of you. When you return, we will discuss your attitude." Nora felt anger rise, but instead of replying, she opened her laptop and began refining her client proposals. She had a Zoom meeting the next day with the tech startup she had been courting for weeks. During the ride, she worked using the bus's unreliable Wi-Fi, refusing to let Clara's voice drown out her own determination. For the first time, she wasn't seeking her mother's approval. That evening, during a stop in Fort Stockton, Nora called Aunt Diane. "Nora, sweetheart, are you all right?" Diane asked immediately. Her voice sounded warm, the opposite of Clara's cold tone. Nora explained everything, including the stolen money. Diane sighed deeply. "Your mother did the same to me 20 years ago. Left me stranded in Brighton after I refused to lie for her. She drained my account and said I needed to learn responsibility." Nora was stunned. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" Diane replied softly. "Your father begged us to stay quiet. He hoped she would change." When Nora finally reached Dallas at 4 in the morning, Diane was waiting outside the station, wrapped in a warm coat. The moment she saw Nora, she pulled her into a tight hug. "Let it out," she whispered as Nora cried into her shoulder. Diane drove her to a cozy 2-bedroom flat filled with plants and soft blankets. "You can stay here as long as you need," she said. "No judgment. No conditions." Nora looked around the warm, quiet home and realized she hadn't felt this safe in years, not even in Clara's house. Before resting, Nora wrote an email to Clara. "Mom, I made it back safely. What you did wasn't teaching me independence. It was cruel and dangerous. You stole from me and abandoned me in another state. I will no longer tolerate emotional abuse. I'm staying with Aunt Diane. Do not come here or call me. If I choose to speak to you again, I'll reach out. I'm removing you from my accounts and emergency contacts." She hesitated only a moment before pressing send. Her hands trembled, but her heart felt strangely light, as though she'd taken her first real breath. Clara's reply came minutes later, filled with fury. "How dare you speak to me like this? After everything I've done for you. You are ungrateful and disrespectful. Your little business will fail and you will crawl back." Nora read it calmly, then blocked her mother's number. Diane watched her quietly and said, "Good. Boundaries are healthy." Nora felt an unfamiliar sensation, relief. For the first time, she had chosen herself over Clara's expectations. She slept deeply in Diane's guest room, wrapped in a soft blanket that smelled faintly of lavender and safety. The next afternoon, Nora prepared for her Zoom meeting from Diane's kitchen table. She straightened her hair, adjusted her laptop, and reminded herself of everything she had survived. When the call began, the startup team listened intently as she presented her strategy. Their CEO, a friendly man named Ethan, smiled. "Your ideas are impressive. When can you start?" Nora felt her heart leap. "Immediately," she answered. Ethan nodded. "Great. We'd like you to join us in London for a month in our innovation hub. We'll cover housing. Would that work?" Nora nearly cried. Yes. Yes, that would be perfect." After the meeting, Nora sat at the kitchen table in stunned silence. She had done it. Despite everything Clara had taken from her, she had secured the contract. Diane placed a cup of tea in front of her. "See, you didn't need your mother's approval to succeed." Nora smiled for the first time in days. Later that evening, Beth called. "Nora, Mum is losing it. She's telling people you joined a cult or fled the country. I tried to tell her to stop, but she won't listen." Nora sighed gently. "Beth, her behavior isn't your responsibility." Beth's voice cracked. "I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you in Arizona. I was scared of becoming her target." Nora softened. "I understand." Beth hesitated before saying, "Nora, I'm not happy in medicine. I only went because Mum pushed me." Nora was quiet for a moment. "Then change it," she said softly. "You're allowed to choose your own life." Beth sniffled. "Can I visit you in London when you go?" Nora smiled. "Anytime." For the first time, the sisters talked not as comparisons but as equals, two women learning to escape the same shadow. 2 weeks later, Nora arrived in London for her new contract. The company provided a modern apartment with large windows overlooking the Thames. Ethan introduced her to the creative team, young, enthusiastic professionals who valued innovation over tradition. They loved Nora's bold ideas and encouraged her creativity. She rebuilt their digital strategy, boosting engagement and helping them secure new investors. Outside of work, Nora explored the city, street markets, bookshops, and riverside walks. Slowly, she began to feel like someone new, someone free. London became a place of healing, a world far from Clara's control. Though work consumed much of her time, Nora also began therapy with a counselor named Dr. Shaw, who specialized in family trauma. "Your mother fears losing control," Dr. Shaw explained during a session. "Your independence threatens her sense of identity. Abandoning you in Phoenix was her attempt to regain power." Nora listened quietly. "But she didn't succeed," Dr. Shaw continued. "You rebuilt your life with no help from her. That is strength." Nora felt tears gather, but they weren't painful. They were cleansing. She was finally learning that her worth had never depended on her mother's approval. As the months passed in London, Nora found herself growing in ways she never expected. She worked long hours but loved every minute of it. Her confidence blossomed as she led campaigns that attracted thousands of new followers. One evening, Ethan approached her with a warm smile. "Nora, your work has transformed this company," he said. "When your contract ends, We'd like to offer you a permanent position. Nora felt her breath catch. A permanent role here in London. Ethan nodded. If you want it. Nora smiled softly. I do. I really do. Nora settled into a new routine. Morning coffee by the river, afternoon strategy meetings, evening walks through lively streets. She even adopted a small rescue cat from a London shelter and named him Bristol. Life began to feel full again. She started a blog titled Left in Phoenix, Found in London, sharing her journey of rebuilding from the ashes of betrayal. To her surprise, the blog gained thousands of readers. Women from around the world sent messages saying, "Your story gave me courage." Nora could hardly believe it. Her pain was helping others find strength. One afternoon, Ethan forwarded Nora a message from a major publisher. They had read her blog and wanted to discuss turning her story into a book. Nora stared at the screen in disbelief. A book. Her life, her struggle, printed on shelves. Ethan smiled at her stunned expression. "I think the world needs your story," he said. Nora booked a meeting with the publisher. As she prepared notes, she realized something remarkable. She no longer felt ashamed of her past. She didn't hide it. She owned it. What once felt like a wound now felt like power. Beth visited London during her school break. When Nora saw her at Heathrow Airport, she ran into her arms. Beth looked lighter, freer. "I left medicine," Beth said with a small smile. "I'm starting my teacher training next month." Nora hugged her tightly. "I'm proud of you." They spent days exploring the city, laughing like they hadn't in years. One evening, Beth looked out at the Thames and whispered, "Mum still doesn't understand why I left, but I don't need her approval anymore." Nora nodded, realizing they were both finally stepping out from Clara's shadow. 3 months later, Nora received an unexpected email from Clara. Came from a new address, with a subject line simply reading, "Please read." Inside, Clara wrote, "I've started therapy at Beth's insistence. My counselor says I must acknowledge the harm I caused. Leaving you in Phoenix was wrong. Taking your money was wrong. I am trying to understand why I behaved that way." Nora read the email twice, then closed her laptop gently. For the first time in her life, her mother's words didn't send her spiraling. She felt complete without a response. Dr. Shaw asked Nora during their next session, "How do you feel about your mother's message?" Nora took a slow breath. "Honestly, indifferent," she said. "Not angry. Not hopeful. Just free." Dr. Shaw smiled softly. "That is real healing, Nora. You no longer need her apology to validate your worth." Nora realized it was true. She didn't need Clara's approval, forgiveness, or closeness. She had built a life where her value came from her choices, her courage, and the people who supported her, not from a mother who couldn't see her worth. When Nora's book proposal was accepted, she celebrated with her new friends and colleagues. They filled her flat with laughter, food, and music. Diane video called during the celebration, cheering loudly. Margaret, the kind woman from the bus, sent a heartfelt message saying she was proud of Nora's strength. Nora looked around her crowded living room and thought, "This is family." Not the family she came from, but the family she chose. People who loved her without conditions. People who lifted her up instead of pushing her down. For the first time, she truly felt she belonged. The night before sending her final book draft to the publisher, Nora stood on her balcony overlooking the city lights. Bristol curled at her feet, purring softly. Her phone buzzed with messages from new clients who had discovered her through her blog and conference talks. She had become a woman others looked up to, someone who turned trauma into transformation. She whispered into the London breeze, "I made it." The memory of Phoenix Airport flashed in her mind, the loneliness, fear, and helplessness. But now she understood something powerful. That moment wasn't her ending. It was her beginning. In the following months, Nora's life continued blossoming. Her book gained attention even before release. Her company promoted her to Director of Digital Strategy, and she mentored young women who struggled with self-worth and family pressure. She often told them, "You are allowed to choose yourself. She thought of the younger version of herself, the girl who had cried in an airport chair, terrified and abandoned. Nora wished she could whisper to her, "Hold on. You have no idea how beautiful your future is." She realized her story would help thousands find courage to begin again. 1 year after being left at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, Nora hosted a dinner in her London flat. Her closest friends gathered around the table: Ethan, Beth, Diane via video call, and neighbors who had become family. Margaret even surprised her with a handwritten letter. As they raised their glasses, Ethan smiled and said, "To Nora, who turned abandonment into freedom." Nora felt tears rise, but they were warm, grateful tears. She looked around at the love surrounding her and whispered, "I'm finally free." And in that moment she knew the truth. Clara hadn't broken her. She had awakened her.